Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Yashodanandana Jamuna Shira Shavana Chapati Jamuna Shira Shavana Chapati Jaya Ram Madhava Kunjabidhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yamuna Tira Jaya Raja Madhava Madhava Shira Jaya Raja Shira Jaya Raja Jaya Bala Jaya And Vishnu Paramahamsa Parivajacharya Istatara Satvashveshana Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaura So ordinarily, on the appearance and disappearance days of His Holiness Tamar Krishna Goswami, we're listening to his lecture in the morning. Unfortunately, we couldn't change the scheduling for the Srimad Bhagavatam class, so I was still requested to give the class, but I'd like to speak a little of Tamal Krishna Maharaj, so getting us into the mood for today's festival. Just a short biography on ISKCON leaders. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he began his association with Krishna consciousness in 1968 where he was soon accepted as a disciple by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So he was a very early disciple of Srila Prabhupada. From 1975 until 1979, Tamal Krishna Goswami headed the Radha Damodar Party, a fleet of buses carrying disciples of Swami Prabhupada who traveled around America distributing his books. If we're very fortunate, we can read those pastimes in the Radha Damodar Vilas, very wonderful pastimes of this traveling bus party that went through America. Srila Prabhupada created the GBC in 1972, and since that time it has met on an annual basis. Tamal Krishna Goswami was a member of this GBC since its beginnings. Tamal Krishna Goswami has served on ISKCON's GBC since its inception in 1970. In January 1972, he accepted the renounced Order of Life. So this is only 4 years after his first initiation by Srila Prabhupada. He became a sannyasi. So he accepted the renounced Order of Life from his spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, in Jaipur, in India. He served as ISKCON's first GBC secretary for India from 1970 to 1974 and was appointed the trustee of the BBT, responsible for the US sales. In 1977, he served as Srila Prabhupada's last personal secretary with Srila Prabhupada during Prabhupada's final pastime. Since that time, he has served as the GBC secretary for Texas and a large number of countries in the Orient. Tamal Krishna Goswami is the author of several books on various religious subjects, including 2 classical dramas. He was also a doctoral student at the University of Cambridge. His thesis was on the theology of ISKCON's founder, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. At the time of his death, he had completed all but the conclusion. I'm unsure what happened with this thesis, because in this bio it says that the intention was to publish the thesis. Does anybody know? I'm unsure. So, as we know, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he left this world in a vehicle accident near to Mayapur. He had been attending the Gaura Purnima festivals in the GBC meeting, and his samadhi is placed alongside Srila Prabhupada's samadhi in ISKCON Mayapur. So as we know, we're very fortunate here in Auckland to be blessed with many of Tamal Krishna Maharaj's very dedicated disciples. So these days are a very wonderful opportunity for us to come together as a family and glorify the spiritual master. So I think the festival is starting at 10:30. Yes, we can all come together and glorify Maharaj. So we read from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. We're continuing the chapter India Revisited, Part 2. Ramanuja's beard was huge. Looking like an ordinary hippie, he misrepresented Srila Prabhupada wherever they met. Prabhupada told Achyutananda, "Tell your friend to shave." Achyutananda and Ramanuja talked, but Ramanuja wouldn't shave. Wanting Ramanuja to agree on his own, Prabhupada didn't ask him again. But when a copy of the latest Back to Godhead magazine arrived from the States, Prabhupada got an idea. 2 illustrations in the magazine showed Haridas Thakur converting a prostitute. After her conversion, the prostitute had shaved her head. Showing the pictures to Ramanuja, Prabhupada asked, "What is the difference between this picture and that picture?" "I don't know, Swamiji," Ramanuja replied. "No," Prabhupada said, pointing to the pictures. "What is the difference in the picture?" "Oh, she is a devotee." "Yes," Prabhupada said, "but what else?" "Oh, she has a shaved head." "Yes," Prabhupada smiled, "a devotee has a shaved head. Do you want me to shave my head?" "Yes." Ramanuja shaved, but within a few days he began growing his beard and hair back. From now on, Prabhupada told Achyutananda, no more cheap imitations. They have to know something. Ramanuja hung on. Prabhupada wanted Ramanuja and Achyutananda to remain in India after his departure and continue to try for the American house in Vrindavan. Ramanuja wrote his own impressions to his friend Mukunda in San Francisco. So this is an excerpt from Ramanuja's letter. Please be advised that we are doing all we can to get him off as soon as possible, but this primitive Indian government is putting obstacles in our way. The man who could have given Swamiji clearance for his P form has just drowned, so the clearance has to be made in Bombay. This is the delay. Here in Kolkata, we are having lots of fun addressing different people. Swamiji makes Achyutananda and I give a short speech. I'm becoming more expert at this. I think that he makes us speak in order to show the audience that we American Vaishnavas are for real. And also, he wants everyone to preach Krishna consciousness. It is very difficult to take care properly of Swamiji's health here. For one thing, it is a big thing to serve sweets in India, and it is impolite to decline. Also, we get all kinds of visitors. We have not been able to go to bed before 11 o'clock, and Swamiji automatically wakes at 3. In this respect, the people here are very inconsiderate, but if Achyutananda and I ask them to leave, they will ask Swamiji if they should, and Swamiji, of course, says no. Anyway, his heartbeat is a little fast and sometimes is alarmingly fast, so I suggest that you get a good heart specialist to see him. Please arrange for this doctor, and above all, make sure that Swamiji gets plenty of rest. You need not restrict visitors too strictly, because if the company is good, Swamiji seems to enjoy visitors. Please do all you can to get Swamiji's beat to normal again. His chariot needs to be fixed up so that he can remain on this earth for at least another 10 years. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're continuing on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 2, the activities of Maharaj Agnidra. I've written it like this, but if you have your phone in the Bhagavatam, it's one long line. Just trying so we can chant the verse. Agnidra Rajat Trita Kamanam Apsarasam Evanati Apsarasam Evanudinam Adi Manyamanastasya Salokatam Shrutibir Avarunda Yatra Pitaro Madayante Agnidro Rajatripta Kamanam Apsarasam Evanudinam Adi Manyamanastasya Salokatam Shrutibir Avarunda Yatra Pitaro Madayante Agnidro Rajatripta Kamanam Apsarasam Evanudinam Adi Manyamanastasya Salokatam Shrutibir Avarunda Yatra Pitaro Madayante
Agnidro Raja Sita Kama
Agnidro Rajatripta Kamanam
Manyamanastasya salokatam shrutibir avarundayatra pitaro madhyante Agni-dronajatrirakamanah Sapsara-samevanudinam-mani Amanyamanastasya solakatam srutibhi Avarundayatra pitaro madhyante
Nidro Raja Triptaha Kamana
Agni-dronajatrirakamanah Sapsara-samevanudinam-mani
Katam Shrutivir
Manyamanastasya solakatam srutibhi Avarundayatra pitaro madhyante.
Word for word. Agnidra, Agnidra, Raja, the king, Atripta, not satisfied, Kamanam, with sense gratification, Apsarasam, the celestial woman Purvachiti, Eva, certainly, Anudinam, day after day, Adhi, exceedingly, Manyamana, thinking of, Tasya, of her, Salokata, promotion to the same planet, Shrutivi, by the Vedas, Avarunda, got, Yatra, where, Itara, the forefathers, Madayante, take pleasure. Translation and purple by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. King Agnidra, his lusty desires not at all satisfied, always thought of her. Therefore, in accordance with the Vedic injunctions, the king, after his death, was promoted to the same planet as his celestial wife. That planet, which is called Pitruloka, is where the Pitas, the forefathers, live in great delight. Purport. If one always thinks of something, he certainly gets a related body after death. Maharaj Agnidra was always thinking of Pitruloka, the place where his wife had returned. Therefore, after his death, he achieved that same planet, probably to live with her again. Bhagavad Gita also says, Yam yam bhakti smaram bhavam jajante kalevaram tam tam evaitikam eya sada tat bhava. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. Bhagavad Gita 8:6. We can naturally conclude that if we always think of Krishna or become fully Krishna conscious, we can be promoted to the planet of Golok Vrindavan, where Krishna eternally lives. I'll read the following text. It doesn't have a purport, and we'll finish the chapter. Sampareti pitare navabrataro meru duritri meru devim pratirupam ugradam strinvatam ramyam shyamam narim bhadram devavitim iti samgyanabodhavam. Translation. After the departure of their father, the 9 brothers married the 9 daughters of Meru, named Meru Devi, Pratirupa, Ugradamstri, Lata, Ramya, Shama, Nari, Bhadra, and Devaviti. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 5th canto, 2nd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Activities of Maharaj Agnidra. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. We're ending this pastime hearing of King Agnidra today in the end of this chapter. And then we're heading into hearing of Maharaj Agnidra's wonderful son, Maharaj Nali, and his wife Mary Devi. That's then leading into the pastime of King Rishabh. So along the way in the Srimad Bhagavatam, sometimes we hear of these lineages, many different people, many different kings. And we hear of these personalities to set the scene, most often for the Lord's appearance or the appearance of a powerful incarnation, an appearance of a great devotee. So Advaita Acharya, when he would preach Srimad Bhagavatam, he would explain every verse in terms of pure devotional service. That every single verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that is the conclusion, is pure devotional service. So even these verses that we read that talk about this personality and that personality, even in this verse that we heard today about King Agnidra, his lusty desires are not satisfied. He was always thinking of his wife, and therefore he's left his body and attained the same planet as his wife. This verse, as Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, this verse is still leading us towards pure devotional service. What are we meditating on? That is the message of this verse and this example in Srimad Bhagavatam. What is our meditation? What is our destination? And as Srila Prabhupada says, when someone always thinks of something, certainly we get a related body after death. And Krishna explains this very nicely in Bhagavad Gita, this verse that Srila Prabhupada quotes 8:6. Actually, there's a few verses together, 8, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So I wanted to go through those a little bit today. And it's also very relevant that today is Maharaj's Tirabhav, his disappearance. We can certainly meditate on how he has attained the ultimate goal of Sri Krishna's lotus feet because of his absorption in devotional service and in the practice of Krishna consciousness. So this is the message that Krishna gives to Arjuna in this section of Bhagavad Gita. So the verse 8:6 that Prabhupada quoted, Yam Yam Bhapi Smaram Bhavam, Krishna says that whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. Now Krishna uses this, Prabhupada, it is really interesting how Prabhupada translates it. It's eva, certainly. Eva eti, certainly gets. And Srila Prabhupada has written without fail. It is a certainty. So whatever we are meditating on when we quit our body, that state we will attain without fail. And Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that the process of changing one's nature at the critical moment of death is here explained. A person who, at the end of his life, quits the body thinking of Krishna attains the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. But it is not true that a person who thinks of something other than Krishna attains the same transcendental state. This is a point we should note very carefully. How can one die in the proper state of mind? Maharaj Bharat, although a great personality, thought of a deer at the end of his life. And so in his next life, he was transferred into the body of a deer. Although as a deer, he remembered his past activities. He had to accept that animal body. Of course, one's thoughts during the course of one's life accumulate to influence one's thoughts at the time of death. So this life creates one's next life. If in one's present life one lives in the mode of goodness and always thinks of Krishna, it is possible for one to remember Krishna at the end of one's life. That will help one be transferred to the transcendental nature of Krishna. If one is transcendentally absorbed in Krishna's service, then his next body will be transcendental, spiritual, not material. Therefore, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Ram Ram is the best process for successfully changing one's state of being at the end of one's life. So in this purport, Srila Prabhupada lays it all out very clearly, but he notes we need to take really careful care about this. How are we preparing ourselves for the end of our life? How are our day-to-day activities leading us to this point of remembering Krishna at the time of death? This is crucial. And as we hear in this verse today, Maharaj Agnidra, what was his meditation? He's always thinking of his wife. Therefore, he has unsatisfied desires. And this is a real trap that we can easily fall into, especially as we're going through this chapter, especially in householder life. In householder life, there are many varied responsibilities, and those varied responsibilities take a lot of our energy, take a lot of our focus, take a lot of our concentration and absorption to be able to perform our duties properly. But what does Krishna say to Arjuna? Actually, in the next verse, it says, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. That was Arjuna's duty. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. So this instruction is for all of us. Arjuna's duty was to fight, and Krishna is saying, you fight while you're thinking of me. So we can take that into our own lives and remember whatever duty we have to fulfill, we should perform those duties thinking of Krishna. And it's a progressive goal. So it's not as if we're going to start off like that. But this is something that we're working towards. So in family life, keeping Krishna in the center, bringing our children up, remembering Krishna, helping them to remember Krishna. Children are wonderful because they're little sponges, they'll take on whatever you share with them. So it's a wonderful opportunity to share Krishna consciousness with our family and our children. And in that way, not only are they becoming Krishna conscious, but we're remembering Krishna. So performing our duties while thinking of the Lord, this is very fundamental. And as Srila Prabhupada gives this example in the purport from 8.6 of Maharaj Bharat. Now this is a very famous example in Srimad Bhagavatam. So Maharaj Bharat, he was also a very pious and wonderful king and very spiritually advanced. So at the end of his life, as he was aging, he gave up his kingdom and he went to the forest to practice bhakti yoga, to practice Krishna consciousness. And in the forest, by the time it describes his activities, he was always chanting, he was engaged in meditation, he had his mind fixed on the Lord. And yet, he developed attachment for the deer. So there was a baby deer, and its mother deer was frightened by the sound of a wild animal in the forest. And the mother deer left the baby deer. So the baby deer was alone without a protector when Maharaj Bharat found the baby deer. Now, also one of the responsibilities for a Kshatriya, for a king, is to give shelter to anyone who needs shelter. Maharaj Bharat felt compassionate towards the deer and he took the deer in. Now, it describes in the Bhagavatam how he continued all of his practices. He continued chanting, he continued his meditation. And yet, he developed affection alongside of that for the deer. He would pat the deer would bathe, and pat the deer, and feed the deer, and take care of the deer. So much so that over time, now it's not an instant thing, but over time, his attachment for the deer began to impede his spiritual practice. And even while he was chanting, he was thinking of the deer. And I remember hearing a class many years ago, Ramai Swami Maharaj was explaining this pastime, and he said that, I don't know if I'll remember verbatim, but he said something along the lines of, if Bharat Maharaj had been still in the company of the Vaishnavas, someone would have been able to say, excuse me, look at your attachment for the deer. The attachment for the deer is too much. But because he was alone, he fell victim to this. So also this very, very important point of performing our duties, living our life in the association of the devotee, and having relationships with devotees, at least one or two, confidential friends who are honest enough to say to you, excuse me, what's happening? You know, why are you doing like this? Or do you think your perception's a little bit off here? You know, where I'm from in Australia, we're very upfront in speaking what you mean to someone else. And in friendship, I think that quality is very, very important. To have someone who can say to you, hey, you're going a bit off track. So Maharaj Bharat didn't have that. So his attachment for the deer simply increased until right at the point of death. So unfortunate. He had lived his life so wonderfully and was so advanced, but right at the point of death, he cried out for the deer because the deer had run away. He's searching for the deer. He was in anxiety, and he was in old age, in anxiety, and he left this world thinking of the deer. Because of his wonderful life of service, in that body of a deer, he was able to remember his past activities. And then as we go on in the pastime, he becomes Jada Bharat in the next but this point of whatever we remember at the time of death, we're going to be obliged to take that body. And it is our lifetime that accumulates our activities, our consciousness in this lifetime that accumulates to what we're going to be thinking about at the time of death. Or as Maharaj Bharat, we have to really watch, where are my attachments forming? Am I becoming distracted from my devotional practice because of these attachments? I had the wonderful fortune, share a small personal story, I had the wonderful fortune of being with a very special devotee, my Vartma Pradarshaka Guru. The first devotee I met as he was leaving his body. I was helping to nurse him along with his wife. And he had a very aggressive brain tumor. So it was a slow departure over some period of time. And I remember he was so dedicated to chanting. This was the final thing to go. His body was emaciated. He couldn't move anymore, you know, in the final part. And yet he always wanted his beads in his hand. He couldn't move the beads anymore. We would chant beside his bed. We would read for him. All of these things supporting him. But he always wanted the beads in his hand. And even when he was barely conscious, if the beads would slip from his hand would search for his beads on the bed. So he always wanted his beads, keeping his beads close. And I could see, going through this experience like this, alongside his wife trying to serve him, to see his attachment for Krishna was so strong that even with the terrible demise of his body, he was clear in consciousness, and it was an amazing experience. And actually, just before, he actually slipped into a coma for the last few days of his life, so we were not able to communicate. But I don't know what was happening inside, you know. But very fortunately, we actually got his spiritual master on the phone. His spiritual master spoke to him, even though he was in an unconscious state, and gave him permission to leave. And after that, he left this world. So it was an incredible experience, one I'm very, very grateful for. And yeah, for me as a much younger devotee, this happened a long time ago, seeing his attachment for chanting and how Krishna was protecting him at every step, even through this debilitating, terrible illness. Krishna was protecting him and he was unafraid. It was an incredible experience. So this practice of our practice of Krishna consciousness needs to bring us to that point of being unafraid to face death. How are we preparing ourselves to leave this world? And that is our sadhana, our practice, the association of devotees. Those are the things that are going to strengthen us so that when we inevitably get to the final test, the end of life, we can remember Krishna. Because that is our goal. We want to always remember Krishna and never forget him. But certainly at the end of this life, we want to be in the consciousness whereby we can remember Krishna. And as Krishna explains in this section of Bhagavad Gita, when we dedicate our activities to him, when we are absorbed in remembrance of Krishna, then we will definitely come to him. He says, without doubt, with your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. Asamshaya, beyond a doubt. So this is very, this should give us a lot of conviction and a lot of confidence that this goal is attainable. We simply need to follow what Srila Prabhupada has given us. And Prabhupada says in the purport that the Lord does not say that one should give up prescribed duties. One can continue them and at the same time think of Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. So by chanting Hare Krishna, we are meant to be remembering Krishna. This is a process whereby we hear, we chant, we remember. So that remembrance of Krishna comes naturally when we chant Hare Krishna. When our mind is absorbed in the Hare Krishna mantra, then Krishna becomes pleased. Krishna is seated within the heart, and from Krishna comes remembrance, comes forgetfulness, comes everything. So if we are able to remember Krishna, even just glimpses throughout the day, somehow we're able to remember Krishna. Oh Krishna, I'm so grateful to you for this remembrance of you. We should always, don't think that we can remember Krishna by our own power, by my own service, because I'm surrendered, now I can remember Krishna. No, we can remember Krishna because Krishna is allowing us to remember him. If Krishna is pleased by our service, if Krishna is pleased by our effort, then he will allow us to remember him. And similarly, at the time of death, Krishna is pleased with us. If Krishna becomes indebted, Krishna will help us to remember him. We're not on our own in trying to remember Krishna. In the next verse in Bhagavad Gita, so 8.8, Krishna says, he who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Partha, is sure to reach me. So we can really meditate on these verses from Krishna. He is sure to reach me. Krishna is giving us that confidence. And how will we keep our mind constantly engaged in remembering Krishna? That's up to each and every one of us to imbibe in our lives. How am I remembering Krishna? Am I performing my duties in such a way that they are helping me to remember Krishna? Or are my duties, my responsibilities in life overtaking my spiritual practice and causing me to forget Krishna? Should be a constant reflection for a devotee. How am I going? We need to become introspective and think, how am I progressing in spiritual life? Just recently, my family and I had a visit to Mayapur Dham. And actually after returning, because of COVID in between, we hadn't been for 5 years. So after returning, I realized how important it is to go to the Dham, to have some time away from your everyday duties, everyday life, go to the Dham, absorb yourself in hearing and remembering Krishna, hearing, chanting, remembering Krishna, and then just see how your perspective on life completely changes. I feel like a new person, which is wonderful. So we have these wonderful processes of devotional service, hearing, chanting, remembering, being with the devotees, being in the holy Dham. These practices should support us in our remembrance of Krishna. And yeah, it is each and every one of our responsibilities to ensure we're moving forward in our Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada, he concludes his purport of today's verse by saying that we can naturally conclude that if we always think of Krishna or become fully Krishna conscious, we can be promoted to the planet Goloka Vrindavan, where Krishna eternally lives. So I thought we might finish with just a couple of verses from Sri Brahma Samhita that describe this place. Because what is this place, Goloka Vrindavan, where Krishna lives? This is also the meditation of a devotee. I want to be with Krishna. So at the end of the life, we want to attain Krishna. Where does Krishna live? What is it like? We can absorb ourselves in also remembering the spiritual world, remembering the Dhams. So this is verse 29. Chintamani prakarasana shukata vriksha lakshavriti susurabhira vipanayantam lakshmi sahasra shatasambhava sevyamanam govindamadi purusham tamaham vachami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor who is tending the cows, yielding all desires, in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or both. So if we've tried to read Sri Brahma Samhita, you know that the purports by Srila Bhaktivinoda and Saraswati Maharaj are incredible. This one is kind of understandable, so I'll read the purport. He has an incredible English language. It's just remarkable. By the word Chintamani is meant transcendental gem. We can meditate on this. What is Goloka Vrindavan? What does it consist of? Just as Maya builds this mundane universe with the 5 material elements, so the spiritual potency has built the spiritual world of transcendental gems. The Chintamani, which serves as material in the building of the abode of the Supreme Lord of Goloka, is far rarer and a more agreeable entity than the philosopher's stone. The purpose tree yields only the fruit of piety, wealth, fulfillment of desire and liberation. But the purpose trees in the abode of Krishna bestow innumerable fruits in the shape of checkered divine love. Kamadhenus, cows yielding the fulfillment of desire, give milk when they are milked. But the Kamadhenus of Goloka pour forth oceans of milk in the shape of the fountain of love, showering transcendental bliss that does away with the hunger and thirst of all pure devotees. So we're getting an image in our mind. So the transcendental world of Goloka is consisting of these Chintamani stones, gems. The purpose trees there just give love, fruits in the shape of checkered divine love, and the Kamadhenus are pouring forth divine love. This is the spiritual world. We can meditate on it. And then we have the next verse. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head decked with a peacock's feather, with a figure of beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of people. So in that spiritual world of Goloka, we see Krishna. We see this beautiful vision of the Supreme Lord, round whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers, beautified with the moon locket. His 2 hands are adorned with the flute and jeweled ornaments. who always revels in pastimes of love and whose graceful threefold bending form of Sham Sundar is eternally manifest. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm, Goloka, with Radha, resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities in the company of her confidant, Saki, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual Radha. So what's happening in the spiritual world? This ever increasing love and reciprocation between the Supreme Lord and his eternal consort, Srimati Radharani. And we have these gifts given to us in Shastra, and this is worthy of our worship and of our meditation. Alongside with our chanting, our sadhana, we should also be reading, making sure we're absorbing our mind in the Shastra, in the descriptions of Krishna, of Krishna's devotees, Krishna's world, Krishna's energies, everything. And as I mentioned, Sri Advaita Acharya, he would describe everything that he preached on. It's all concerning pure devotional service. So we can attempt to follow in his footsteps and consider everything that we read should be enriching our attachment to Krishna, our knowledge of Krishna, and seeing it all as connected to developing pure devotional service to Krishna. And verse 59 from the Brahma Samhita, this reads, the highest devotion is attained by slow degrees, by the method of constant endeavor for self-realization, with the help of scriptural evidence, theistic conduct, and perseverance in practice. So these are three things that we can take very close to our heart. And again, this is a verse that gives us a lot of confidence. The highest devotion is attained by slow degrees. So no worries if we're not there yet. We are on the path. We're on a progressive path. Constant endeavor for self-realization with scriptural evidence, theistic conduct, making sure we're conducting ourselves in the correct manner, and perseverance in practice. We have to just keep trying. And as I mentioned earlier, Krishna is always there. He is always ready to respond to our effort. At no point should we feel, oh, Krishna is not here for me. Krishna is there at every step, and he's always accompanying us. He's always the witness. How is my devotee remembering me? How is my devotee chanting my glories? How is my devotee endeavoring? And sometimes even during struggle, when maybe things are in a lot of turmoil, if we are endeavoring, Krishna sees that endeavor and he will respond to our effort by purifying our heart, by removing those obstacles and helping us to remember him. And then with the grace of the devotees and the Lord, at the end of this life, we can remember Krishna, and that will be our greatest attainment. So I'll end there and ask, would anyone like to share some comments or make a question, ask a question, share your realization? Feel free. Yes, Paul.
Hi, Mr. Maraji. Thank you very much for a wonderful class. So, Maraji, you mentioned that the activities that we perform in our life obviously develops our consciousness, and then that consciousness at the time of death is obviously going to take us to the next body. But you also mentioned that without Lord Krishna, we cannot remember him. Without his mercy, without his desire, we cannot remember him. So how much of it is us going back to Godhead? How much of it, or at least remembering the Lord at the time of death, how much of it is our effort during our lifetime, and how much of it is the Lord's mercy?
I think it's all up to Krishna, isn't it? Our duty is that we try our best. Yeah? That's our responsibility. And that's our greatest wealth, actually. Our bhakti is our greatest wealth. So hold on to that practice with everything that we have. Yeah? That's up to us. That's in our control. But whether or not we're going back to Godhead, whether or not we can actually remember Krishna at that final moment, that's up to Krishna. But Krishna is kind. If we learn anything through our Shastra, that Krishna never forgets his devotee. Krishna says, yeah, the pure devotees of my heart, I know nothing but them and they know nothing but me. So we also have those assurances from Srila Prabhupada in his purport, without a doubt. You see the way that Prabhupada translates Sanskrit into English. And sometimes you'll see the word for word, it will say one thing, and Srila Prabhupada illuminates it in his translation, makes it stronger. And this point that if we follow the process that Srila Prabhupada has given us, that our acharyas have given us, and we are careful about committing offenses to devotees, we take care in our practice, without doubt, Prabhupada says. At the same time, it's up to Krishna. He is in charge of everything. But Krishna loves us. So of course, he's wanting our betterment. But if our betterment means we go to some other place to serve Krishna, then the devotee is happy with that also. So it's an interesting combination, isn't it? We have to make the endeavor. We can't just say, oh, I'll do whatever I want in my life. And then at the end of my life, if Krishna wants, I'll remember him. We need to make that effort. But ultimately, yes, please.
So in the translation, Prabhupada talks about, the Pitaloka. So something I've always wondered, just to get understanding, is remembering someone who's in Pitaloka the only way to go there? Because if you're attached to someone who's passed away, they could have passed away 15, 20 years ago. Now, if their past crits have been exhausted, they might not be in Pitaloka, they could be in Pataloka, right? So are there any other ways to go to Pitaloka? Because when we talk about our forefathers, and when someone passed away after a year, you did the Shraddha ceremonies, things like that. Are they always the forefathers in Pitaloka? Like, what happens? Are they moving around?
Yeah, unfortunately, Prabhu, I can't give much of an answer to that one. Does anybody else have some thoughts on that? I'm sorry, Prabhu. You'll have to keep wondering or keep asking. Ask someone a bit more advanced than myself. Thank you. Sorry, Prabhu, I can't really give some illumination on that. The question was that in the verse, we see that Maharaj Agnija, he went to Pitraloka because he was always thinking of his wife, and that's where she returned to with Lord Brahma. So Prabhu is saying that we may think of our forefathers, we may remember our forefathers, and if they're in Pitraloka and we are so attached to them, will we then go to Pitraloka? Because sometimes the forefathers who stay in Pitraloka, they may have exhausted their pious credits and fallen down to another place. So then will we go down or will we go up? Okay, that's something for us all to be thinking about. Yes. Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's a wonderful comment. Yeah, thank you. That due to our practice of Krishna consciousness, our forefathers before us and generations after us, as described, are all benefited from that practice. So thank you. Thank you. That's a good way to see it. Yeah, and another impetus for us to remain strong in our Krishna consciousness. Yeah, that we can benefit others. And we can always, actually, that's a wonderful point, we can always offer a prayer to share our pious, not even pious credits, our devotional credits, to share our devotional credits with others. That's also a very compassionate, a way that devotees show their compassion. Yes. Well, okay, so the question was, how do we go through our attachment to our family members? How do we get rid of that attachment? Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So if we remember Queen Kunti's prayers, when she stops Krishna on his chariot, Krishna is about to leave Hastinapur, and she offers these wonderful prayers in the first canto of Bhagavatam. 8th chapter? 7th? 8th? I think. Oh gosh. No, 8th. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Queen Kunti offers this prayer to Krishna to please rid me of my attachment to my family members, right? To purify me of my attachment to my family members. In the purport there, Srila Prabhupada, he talks about how attachment to family is natural. It is very natural. And the goal is not to become detached in a sense of rejection, you know, don't need my family, what are they for anyway, you know, but to serve them as spirit soul. We want to serve our family in such a way that it is increasing our spiritual attachment to Krishna. So we serve our family understanding that, yes, I have some bodily attachment to them, right? But essentially, this person is spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna. I will serve them as a spiritual being and assist them in their spiritual life. We can't artificially become detached. That's not what Krishna consciousness is about. It's about transforming our attachments from material attachments to spiritual attachments, right? So if we have bodily attachments to our relatives, we can purify that attachment by serving them as spirit soul and helping to assist them in their spiritual life. I mean, we become attached to devotees, don't we? How can we become detached? Krishna is attached to his devotees. Who are we? You know? So we have attachment in this life. Our process of Krishna consciousness is to purify those attachments, and as we learn, it is a gradual process. Often, you know, when we're quite new in Krishna consciousness, we take up rejection. You know, I'm attached to this, reject it. You know, I'm attached to it, reject it. But actually, what we want to work towards is to purify our attachment. See how they're connected to Krishna and treat them in that way. My family members, yeah, they're part and parcel of Krishna. How can I help them to remember Krishna? That will not only purify our attachment, but also help us to become Krishna. Yeah. And we just want positive attachments that are helping us to remember Krishna. If we're developing an attachment, like Jad Bharat developed that attachment to the deer, right, it's taking them away from us, from the spiritual practice. So then we need to be discerning. But with family members, we don't want to try to artificially detach ourselves or treat them in such a way that they feel that, oh, this person is a devotee, they're only thinking of Krishna and they never think of me. That's not pleasing to Krishna. We don't want to treat our family members in that way. And treat every living entity should be treated with respect in connection with Krishna. We can stop seeing them as out of connection with Krishna, you know? With gradual development, then we see how everyone is connected with the Lord rather than seeing them as separate. And in that way, we purify our attachments and develop our Krishna consciousness. Our Krishna consciousness needs to become well-rounded and absorb every aspect of our life, not just a little bit, not just when I come to the temple or just when I am chanting japa, but actually let it encompass everything. So let's see how everything I do in life, how is it connected with Krishna? And how can I remember Krishna in every aspect of my life? When I'm dealing with my family, when I'm even at work, how can it all become Krishna conscious? Mantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.
Thank you, Mataji.